Joining us now from Florida is independent journalist Brittany Hopper. Brittany, thank you for joining us. We understand that Hurricane Milton has just made landfall. How are you doing? Are you okay?
Oh, it's just a little bit nuts and chaotic in this house right now. But it's okay. Thank God we're more in the south. The folks in north of us, they're getting hit pretty hard. The latest I just saw, it went from a category 5 to a category 3.
Yeah.
So thank God. I will say this: our governor did a really good job of preparing and heed the warnings and to evacuate, as we've seen previously in other hurricanes in other states. They weren't given enough time to get out. And I think there was plenty of time for folks to get out and be safe. So thank God for
Good.
that.
Yeah, that is good to hear. Glad to hear that you're all okay. Let's look at the election campaign. Donald Trump has survived 2 assassination attempts at this point, and we've finally heard from First Lady Melania Trump admitting that she's worried about her husband's safety. Here she is.
Are you worried about your husband's safety in the next 29 days?
Of course I do. Yes, I do. I think, when they call him, he's a threat to democracy, let's ask ourselves, who is really a threat to democracy? They are ongoing with the lawfare against the former president, as well as, trying to get him off the voting ballots and trying to, silence him. So, yes, of course, I was always afraid what can happen, and that they continuing with that kind of language is just, it's a toxic.
Brittany, I think it's just so important to hear from Melania Trump. I can't imagine the fear that she is experiencing after something like that happens to your partner, not once, but twice. What's your take?
So last week I did Laura Trump's podcast. Obviously, Laura is Trump's daughter-in-law, and we discussed this. And I said, someone should be eating the food before Trump is actually eating his food, because that's how bad it has gotten. It's very frightening that there's this possibility of silencing him, because I do believe what Melania said is that he's a threat to democracy. And so by silencing him, God forbid, they're trying to actually kill him. And there's people who are actually trying to do this to him. And it's horrible. It's frightening. I'm sure for his family members to explain to his grandchildren, Melania's son, it's this entire family just must be living on the edge of their seats. And mind you, Trump doesn't need to be doing this.
Absolutely.
He doesn't need to do this. But clearly he's doing this. His life is literally on the line here. And so clearly he's doing this for the goodness of America, for our country. And so, it's frightening how they do want, some people want to silence democracy. They want that he thinks that he is a threat to democracy, and they want to silence him by killing him.
I tell you what, it was incredible to see him back in Butler, Pennsylvania. He is brave, whether you like his politics or not. He's absolutely fearless. And, I think a lot of credit needs to go to his family who are supporting him while he's been faced with these attempts on his life. Now, Kamala Harris has finally decided to do media interviews, and she decided to go on the podcast Call Her Daddy, where the host Alex Cooper claimed that it would all be about women's issues. Now, the majority of that podcast, I listened to the whole thing, was about abortion, and as if that is the only issue facing American women. No mention about other issues that affect women, like keeping men out of women's sport or the secure border. No mention as well about Trump's policy about making IVF free for all women. What did you make of the podcast and what Kamala Harris had to say?
So look, I think that it reached 5 million people. And then I think she went on Howard Stern show after that, and it reached 10 million people. I got to say, I think that this is smart by her campaign, by her people doing this. They withheld her from doing so many interviews and press conferences for so long. I think this was all strategically done on purpose. And now, a month before our elections, they're just going hard and hitting it where I think that they know they're going to get the votes. You know, like you mentioned, this is predominantly female listeners. And, you know, I thought that the host was very soft on Kamala.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. You know, as you mentioned, where were the questions about, you know, transgender and boys in sports and all of those issues that we're discussing, IVF with Trump, everything that you just mentioned, where were those questions to her? But again, at the same time, I do think that it's very good PR for her going on these types of shows right now, and she's doing it. She went on The View. She's getting millions of viewers right now. And,
yeah. But you know what? I think that might be doing her no favors. We're so close to the campaign. I think this is the point where people see a little bit more of her and they go, actually, I changed my mind. But here is Kamala Harris when she was pressed rather on one of the top issues for voters in America, which is the border.
Was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think the policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem. Okay?
But the numbers did quadruple.
And the numbers today, because of what we have done, we have cut the flow of illegal immigration by half.
But should you
we
have
have
done
cut
that?
the
Should you
flow
have
of
done that?
fentanyl by half, but we need Congress to be able to act to actually fix the problem.
Okay, so Brittany, we finally have Kamala Harris giving these interviews. When people look at how she handles those questions, what do you think? Are they going to buy it?
So the Call Her Daddy or whatever, those other ones, The View, I think was in her favor. This, I'm quite surprised by Bill, the journalist, who kind of pushed back. I mean, look, is journalism coming back to life? Real journalism here? Because he actually pushed back and asked some tough questions. And I thought she did horribly in this interview. There were a lot of, there is a likability about her that I can understand. I mean, I'm not obviously for her policies and values. They don't align with what I believe in, but I can understand the likability. But this particular interview, I'm sorry, it was not strong. It was not leader material for the United States of America, in my opinion. And I am proud of Bill, the journalist, who really did push back and ask some tough questions. Because as we've seen, even during, you know, just these past interviews, they've been so soft with Kamala.
Yeah.
Or even the debates, the VP debates and the presidential debate. You know, it's been so soft. It's been 3-on-1. So I don't think that this particular 60 minutes interview did her any favors. I think that if anything, hopefully those independent voters who are undecided will perhaps not lean toward her after this interview.
Well, here's another clip from that interview being pressed about gun ownership.
You recently surprised people when you said that you are a gun owner. And then if someone came into your
That
house,
was not the first time I've
they would get
talked
shot.
about it. That's not the first time I've talked about it.
So what kind of gun do you own, and when and why did you get it?
I have a Glock, and I've had it for quite some time. And I mean, look, Bill, my background is in law enforcement. And so there you go.
Have you ever fired it?
Yes. Of course I have. At a shooting range. Yes, of course I have.
Oh, Brittany, she looks so awkward, so uncomfortable, and it's probably because she normally tweaks her answers or puts on a different accent depending on who she's talking to. But as you say, I don't think she did very well in that interview either.
Well, and I mean, the whole Glock thing, and she has a gun, and her background is in law enforcement. You know, I was born and raised in California. One of the reasons why we're in Florida is because of the situations, the politicians that have ruined California. And she was part of that in San Francisco. So let's not forget, soft on crime, soft on criminals, where criminals are treated as victims. So I didn't really understand and buy the whole, now she has a Glock and she uses it at gun range. It was very weird, but this is what we've seen, right? Time and time again. We know that her values and her policies are super far left liberal, but she's trying to appease to this like middle ground centrist type folks, which we know that that's not true because her past doesn't say that. So
Yeah.
I just think it's very hypocritical. And the other thing I want to make a point too is that I read, and I haven't confirmed this, but I also heard that CBS, the way that they edited it for air, they took out a lot of her word salad
did.
stuff that she.
Yeah, no, that has been
That is-
confirmed. That we played that
That is
earlier. We
just-
had the original clip, the edited clip, and he watched that, and it just. And I said this before, but you wonder why people don't trust the media. They don't trust leaders anymore. It's I don't know why they did it. We would never do that in Australia. One of the best things we have about Sky News Australia is we take things live. So politicians, they have nowhere to hide. Our cameras are on them for hours if they end up speaking for that long, and sometimes they do. And you catch everything.
And it should be that way in America, because we technically are supposed to have a free press, and things are being censored, things are being manipulated, things are being twisted and turned, and the American people are not getting the truth. And this is part of the problem. And I've said this over and over again, as I've been a TV journalist for 18 years, and most of that time was on mainstream media. The biggest threat we have in America right now is the media. So I applaud Sky News. I applaud you as a journalist for keeping
thank
it
you.
truthful. For telling both sides of the story, because that's what journalism needs to get back to. The people around the world need to do that. This isn't China.
It's crazy. You know, I was just over in America, and we had a lot of people who watch Sky News Australia over there because that's where they're getting their news from, because they can't trust the mainstream media over in America. We have a similar problem here. Look, Tim Waltz, he was also on 60 Minutes. Let's take a listen to him.
You said, I'm a knucklehead at times. And I think you were referring to the time that you said that you were in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square unrest when you were not.
Yeah.
Is that kind of misrepresentation, isn't that more than just being a knucklehead?
I think folks know who I am, and I think they know the difference between someone expressing emotion, telling a story, getting a date wrong rather than a pathological liar like Donald Trump.
Honestly, Brittany, who can say they want him as VP?
A knucklehead.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Listen, when I was watching the VP debate, there was a part of me that started feeling badly for him, and I don't know why. This isn't it. This just isn't it. I mean, I don't know. But can you imagine if Trump were to get caught in a similar situation, and how what the headlines would be? And it's just, again, it goes back to the media, the pure blatant hypocrisy when it comes to the Democrats versus the Republicans, when it comes to the left versus the right. And the American people just aren't getting a fair shot at really anything. This debate was listen, J.D. Vance had it. I mean, he had it in the can the entire night. He was phenomenal. He is presidential, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Waltz I'm shocked that she chose him, but she did, and this is the ticket. And I will be very surprised if they win. But we shall see.
Very soon. We are less than a month away. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Brittany Hopper, thank you so much for joining us, and stay safe out there.
Thank you. Thank you.